Timber framing is an age-old construction craft used by people around the globe for thousands and thousands of years. During the days of the Wild Wild West, three factors converged to nearly kill off timber framing as a craft. But it experienced a revival and has continued to evolve to what we know today as hybrid timber framing. So let's talk about the early period of timber framing, when it evolved. The early known structures were crock, where they lean like a tepee. They lean stuff together, sticks together, and that's the basic structure of what's going on. Another method was to simply bury posts in the ground and there get rigidity with posts in the ground like so. But the structures didn't last so long. They were susceptible to rot. Little by little, builders of old figured out to use pegs as connectors to avoid timbers pulling apart. That's the tension loading that is really the Achilles heel of all building structures, even today. Talk to any structural engineer and they're going to tell you it's all about the tension loading. For bridges, for high rises, for homes, you name it. Anyway, so these early structures didn't hold up. They got the timber framing, the pegs, and you see this with churches, old wooden bridges, trusses, and a lot of old homes and buildings in Europe. A lot of that was destroyed in the two world wars, which is tragic. The early settlers from Europe to America brought that craft with them, and in the colonial days, there's all kinds of buildings and structures that are still intact, still standing strong on the East Coast, where the 13 colonies are. Really impressive. Great place to tour for old, rich history. But now the days of the Wild West. What three factors converged to bring timber framing as the main method of construction to a screeching halt? I belonged to the Timber Framers Guild. At the Timber Frame Conference one time, I was talking shop with another fellow timber framer who's done work on both the East Coast and the West Coast. And he was kind of complaining that here on the West Coast, man, people just don't really have this deep adoration and connection with timber framing. And as we talked further, we figured out that, well, the Wild West was one with 2x4s and nails. Fierce pace, shanty towns blown up, these boom towns, and that makes sense. 2x4s and nails are two of the three factors that brought timber framing to a screeching halt. The third factor, railroad, transportation. To a town, horse and buggy. So these little pieces can be effectively made, and then unskilled labor, solid 2x4s and whack some nails in. They could build these shanty towns in a heartbeat. And that they did. From all of this rapid construction, the need for rapid construction, evolved the framing technique we use today. It first was balloon framing, where the studs were tall and went through the stories, and the second floor or third floor frame in between the studs, to platform framing, where the studs were shorter, floor built, and then another set of walls. And that's the predominant building method today as far as wood-built structures. The early carpenters back then, they figured out that, okay, we don't have knee braces, but they would put angled pieces of blocking or angled pieces let into the studs to get racking strength, which is exactly what a knee brace in a timber frame does, creates a triangle to prevent tipping over. So that balloon framing really was quite a deal, how it evolved so fast. And that when you have stick-built pieces, hey, and it's fast, unskilled labor, you can do it anywhere, that timber framing becomes, well, it faces demise because it's slow, it takes skilled labor, and even if it is built for longevity with the heavy posts and the knee braces, it still is more expensive. Which brings us to the deep-pocketed clients who brought about timber framing revival. In the 1970s, a gentleman by the name of Ted Benson got into these old buildings and started to tear down old buildings, and clients got interested. Of course, clients with extra coin to spend, they were like, okay, what is this? And this started to take off. And the Jack Sullivan did a lot of research and some big names during the heavy lifting days of this revival. And it evolved into the Timber Framers Guild. Lots of information, lots of effort went into putting volunteers, putting this information together, getting it out to the public, and furthering the revival of the timber framing craft. I've been a recipient of their efforts, and my hat's off to them. A big thank you. Really a rich trove of information on the Timber Framers Guild and books authored by these early revival volunteers, enthusiasts, whatever you want to call them. Today, timber framing is largely powered by the desire to affect or to influence the look and feel of a structure, be it an office, be it a home, whatever it is. You can really do a lot with how the timbers are put in. It can be with the spacing, the size of the timbers, the geometry, whether there's arches or straight, or even using metal for accents, for visible accents that look good. Especially with modern, you'll see that a lot. Some rustic will prefer metal. The 7 styles that we've identified are rustic, which is really popular, as you would think. There is modern, which turned out to be one of my favorite styles. Craftsman. We have Euro, classic, traditional, and coastal. All great styles. And what we see people do is they'll mix and match from the styles to develop their own personalized look and feel. It's really a lot of fun to watch that evolution and somebody finding their sweet spot. It just really feels good. As a next step for you, the viewer, I would invite you to look further into timber framing as a building method, as a way to influence the look and feel of whatever you're intending to build or remodel. There's a world that's rich with history, and you're gonna have a lot of fun doing this. Welcome aboard.